Hello, my name is Christopher Renstrom. I'm the creator of rulingplanets.com and Christopher Renstrom Astrology, and I want to welcome you to my May Astrological Forecast. The month begins with a Venus Pluto square taking place on May 1st. Venus is in the zodiac sign of Taurus, the zodiac sign that she rules, and Pluto is in the zodiac sign of Aquarius. Now, Venus rules over, basically, love and money in astrology. She was named after the Roman goddess of love and beauty, and she rules over the planet of attraction. Venus also rules over partnerships. Venus, when she is in her own zodiac sign, is a very sultry, sensual Venus. Venus in Taurus, in fact, has a very relaxed approach to love and money, based on comfort, seduction, mutual benefits, and perhaps bending a rule or two if the occasion arises. This is the sort of Venus in Taurus, that everyone wants to get into bed with, either romantically or professionally. However, when Venus in Taurus forms a square, which is a combative relationship, to Pluto in Aquarius, she comes under the harsh scrutiny of Pluto in this higher-minded sign. Pluto's insistence on transparency, equity, and a corrective approach to what it regards as questionable dealings is more than likely to rub people with Venus in Taurus the wrong way. Venus in Taurus has a tendency to get very mind-your-own-business when she feels like she's being corrected or looked down upon or judged by someone coming from a holier-than-thou place. But unfortunately, the idea of minding your own business isn't going to work in a day and age where everyone is in everybody else's business. Times are changing, and you're going to have to change with them, or at least create the impression that you are. Signs that will be most affected by this Venus-Pluto square will be Taurus, Libra, Scorpio, and Aquarius. On May 2nd, Pluto turns retrograde in the zodiac sign of Aquarius. Retrograde refers to an apparent backwards motion in the sky. All the planets in astrology turn retrograde, with the exception of the Sun and Moon. Now, it is said when a planet has turned retrograde in the sky that the planet is acting in the reversed way that it normally behaves. In other words, let's take a planet like Venus, who we just talked about. Venus is named after the Roman goddess of love and beauty. So when Venus is moving direct through the sky, she's bringing love and beauty to the different lives that she touches. However, when Venus turns retrograde in the sky, meaning that it looks as if she's moving backwards in the sky, Venus reverses on all of that. She doesn't bring love and beauty. She brings discord and enmity, and oftentimes disputes and rejection and harsh words. Venus in retrograde can even bring the idea of war and combat, because she's no longer exuding the peace and beauty that comes with her natural reign and resolve. Pluto retrograde is a little bit hard to understand in that way. In fact, when we talk about all the modern planets turning retrograde, which are Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, again, modern planets were the planets discovered after 1781 in our modern age. Now, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto are very far away from the Sun, and they lie beyond the orbit of the Earth. So basically, it looks as if Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto spend about half the year retrograde anyway. They sort of move forward a few degrees, turn retrograde and go back a few degrees, and move forward a few degrees. So the idea of saying, well, Uranus is going to work in the way that's reverse of the way it normally behaves, or Neptune's going to act in a manner that's opposite its typical demeanor, these don't really apply because they spend half the year going a couple of degrees forward and half the year going a couple of degrees back. So the way to look at Pluto turning retrograde in the zodiac sign of Aquarius is to think of it as a placeholder. In other words, Pluto entered the zodiac sign of Aquarius on January 20th of this year, and it got to a couple of degrees in, a few degrees into Aquarius, and now it's turned retrograde and it's moving back. What I mean by placeholder is that Pluto in Aquarius has introduced this general idea, all right? But now it's turned retrograde. So we can almost think of it as an idea being introduced into a conversation that no one really takes up on right away, or maybe an item appears in the newspaper that doesn't seem to be a big deal, or maybe there's a general announcement that policy is going to be changed in your company, and everyone's like, okay, we'll get to that when we get to it. So when a modern planet turns retrograde, it's like it's introduced this idea, but now it's backing away from it. It's not insistent. It's not fully behind this idea. What is the idea that Pluto in Aquarius has introduced? Pluto will always bring out the most hidden quality of a zodiac sign. It's not necessarily its shadow or dark side, but it is a subterranean side. When I talk about Pluto, I like to use the image of a seed. A seed is planted in the soil, and maybe the seed will sprout, and maybe it won't. It's that part of ourselves that's buried deep inside. It kind of represents the darkest part of you, but not in necessarily a shadow work sort of way. It represents a part of you that you understand on a gut level because it's in the subterranean part of your chart. So it's a part of you that you understand on a gut level, and it's not something that you can easily describe. This is a different idea from a sun sign, which is how you appear to other people and what you know about yourself to be true. And it's the part of you that shows or is seen or wants to be seen. Pluto doesn't really have a lot of interest in being seen. It's a seed. It wants to remain underground. It wants to remain buried, but it roots each one of us in place, and it draws upon resources that can strengthen us or help us in times that are very difficult. And it generates the whole process of transformation and change that takes place in our own personal lives. Pluto is pretty much responsible for our psychic evolution. So when Pluto enters a zodiac sign like Aquarius, its job is to bring out the gestalt of Aquarius. It's to bring out the prime essence of Aquarius, the guttural essence of Aquarius. And Aquarius is an air sign. It's about relationships, but it's not about you and me relationships or sibling relationships. It's about collective relationship, or it's about society as a whole. Aquarius subscribes to the idea that a society is only as good as the people in it. And so Pluto, by being in Aquarius, is also going to subscribe to this idea. And so Pluto is going to want to bring about an equitable society for everyone. And if a few eggs have to be broken in order to make that take place, if a few lives need to be trampled on in order to create the vision of utopia, Pluto is more than willing to do it. So nowadays, we can all see changes in our society, in each one of our societies. These changes have been very dramatic since about maybe 2019, 2020. And Pluto has seized upon this energy and pushed it forward. So what you're going to feel is like that sense of new change or new direction that was very, very strong in January 20th, when Pluto entered Aquarius, has now subsided. Its momentum is slowing down. And so what you'll also be experiencing in your own life is a slowing down in your own momentum. Now, this doesn't mean that it's going to come to a halt, not at all, nor is it going to inhibit your further progress. What it is that it's going to slow it down. Things aren't going to come together as quickly as you want. Things are slowing down to almost a frustrating, maybe even a vexating level. But it's not a good idea to fight a planet when it's retrograde, particularly a planet that's as powerful as Pluto. You don't want to fight it. A, you can't fight it. Pluto's stronger, okay? It's a bigger energy. And B, it's not a good idea to fight or to struggle with it. Now, Pluto will not come out of retrograde until October 11th. And that probably seems like that's a long ways away. And that doesn't mean that you're in stasis until October 11th or anything along those lines. But what it does mean is that things aren't going to move as quickly as you want. And what you may discover as things are slowing down for you in your life is that you might not have been as ready as you imagined yourself to be. And so this slowing down of energy, or this kind of energy going under the earth again, is actually going to do you an enormous favor, because it gives you time that you didn't think you needed to get your house in order. So by the time that Pluto comes out of retrograde on October 11th, you'll be very thankful that you took the time that you did to get all of your ducks in a row. The zodiac signs that will be most affected are Aries, Gemini, Leo, Virgo, and Sagittarius. On May 7th, we will have a new moon in the zodiac sign of Taurus. This is wonderful because a Taurus new moon is like a miracle grow new moon. Not only does it give you a green thumb for flowers and plants, you will have the same effect on raising a family, growing a business, or harvesting the fruits of a creative effort. Things flourish under your care when you have a new moon in Taurus. Moreover, the moon is exalted in the zodiac sign of Taurus. That means it is at its most powerful. It also means that it makes you your most fertile, your most productive, and your most abundant. So, this new moon in Taurus is very promising for beginning any sort of venture, for taking care of the things that matter and that you love and value in your life, and for making things that are just beginning to grow, flourish, and grow even more robustly than they did before. Now, the other thing that you want to watch out for with a new moon in Taurus is that Taurus moons are rather famous for their conspicuous consumption. In other words, you could eat, drink, and spend to excess under this particular lunar influence. So, in order to avoid that, don't do something like go on a diet or restrict yourself. That's so boring. And Taurus moon is completely against that idea altogether because it wants to enjoy itself and it doesn't want anyone policing its fun. No, what you want to do when you have this new moon in Taurus energy and you find yourself sort of leaning in that direction is make a point when you're eating a meal to leave a little something on the plate. In other words, don't eat every bite. Leave a little something on the plate at the end. Or if you're drinking, leave a little something at the bottom of your glass. Or if you're spending, instead of going on a rampage through all sorts of stores or online sites, maybe you want to invest in something like a payment plan, or you buy one piece of something and then add another piece later on, or something along those lines. It's this idea of sort of delaying the gratification so that you don't have to have it all at once. That way, as you fulfill your desires, as you enjoy your meal or you enjoy your wine or you enjoy that china set or whatever that you bought, you can enjoy it knowing that you were able to afford it and that you didn't go overboard in the first place. On May 13th, we have the annual conjunction of the Sun and revolutionary Uranus in the zodiac sign of Taurus. These conjunctions have been taking place roughly since about the year 2019. And around this time in May, there's always a surprise upset, a radical twist, or a rude awakening that is visited upon the fixed zodiac signs, whether you be a Taurus, a Leo, a Scorpio, or an Aquarius. So this conjunction can basically symbolize or represent, as I said, an unpredictable occurrence or something taking place that you really didn't prepare for. Or it could also be this idea that something has come round full circle. Uranus we describe as being the planet of revolution and change. And when we think of the word revolution, we think of people overthrowing a monarchy or those who are in charge. What we don't always think about with the word revolution is that revolution was a word that was used to describe the orbit of a planet. When a planet completed a full orbit around the sun, it was said to have completed a complete revolution. So the planet has gone around the sun and come back to where it began in the sky. This same sort of experience can show up with a Sun and Uranus conjunction. You may feel like you've gone full circle with a certain issue that was either vexing you or puzzling you or eluding you since May of last year. And so you might have gone full circle with this issue and come to accept the outcome, or basically done your time on the wheel. And so now I'm done. I've finished with this revolution. I've finished with this orbit. Or you can have this feeling that I've gone through all these wild and crazy turns and twists of fortune and direction in my life, only to wind up back where I began. All these sorts of things can happen when there is a Sun and Uranus conjunction that is taking place. The signs most affected will be Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius. From May 18th to May 23rd, we will experience what is called a transfer of light in the sky. A transfer of light is when one planet passes its light to the next, and that planet passes its light to still another one in the sky. You can think of a transfer of light between planets as a relay race. You have one runner start off in the race with a baton in hand, and they go racing on forward, and they need to pass that baton to another runner who is placed further down the track. And when they reach that runner, they hold the baton out, and the other runner starts running, and they grab the baton and they rush on forward, and they go and meet another runner on the track whom they will pass that baton to. This relay race is a race that takes place among a number of different teams who all have their runners staggered in these different positions, and they are all passing a baton. But I want you just to sort of focus on three planets who are participating in this transfer of light. And the transfer of light is first carried by the Sun when it conjoins Jupiter, and then it will be followed by Venus in turn. So let's talk about this first transfer of light that takes place. The Sun moves through zodiac signs faster than Venus does, so it is regarded in astrology as a faster moving planet. So the Sun will pass its energy to Jupiter on May 18th, when the Sun forms a conjunction to Jupiter in the sky. A conjunction, as you may recall, is when two planets are at the same place in a zodiac sign, and the zodiac sign happens to be Taurus. So what will happen on May 18th is that the Sun will conjoin Jupiter in the sky, and it will leave some of its solar energy with Jupiter, all right? So you can almost think of it as lighting a votive candle in a cathedral or something along those lines, or passing the baton to Jupiter. The Sun will leave some of its solar energy with Jupiter, and Jupiter will hold that energy as the Sun passes it. So when they conjoin, when the Sun passes the baton to Jupiter on May 18th, that is a wonderful aspect. Sun-Jupiter conjunctions are almost always seen as fortunate. In this case, this is a conjunction that's taking place towards the end of Jupiter's tenure in the zodiac sign of Taurus. So what you want to do is compare where you are now to where you were a year ago when Jupiter first entered the zodiac sign of Taurus. And when you look at that, you will see how much you have grown as a person. Taurus is an earth sign, and it's very much about the soil and the earth and the land that holds seeds, that holds the roots of plants, that create a foundation for our houses and our neighborhoods and for our lives. Jupiter is a planet that's very much connected to growth. Jupiter and the moon both share those attributes of being about something growing and fulfilling itself in terms of its lifespan, its destiny, or just a concept going from a smidgen of an idea to a wonderful and perfected realization. Things that grow, things that develop are ruled by the moon, and also quite powerfully, they are ruled by the planet Jupiter. And so if you compare May 2024 to May 2023, you're probably going to recognize that you've grown quite a bit as a person. Not only have you become more confident and grounded and expressive of who you are, but you've also been seasoned by your life experiences. You've matured as a person. We can grow older from one year to the next, But that doesn't necessarily mean that we've matured as a person. But with Jupiter in Taurus, you will feel this maturation that's taken place that testifies as seasoned experience and wiser judgment in your life. The Sun Jupiter conjunction in Taurus also bestows an authority and an authenticity that you haven't possessed before. And so, this solidity, that's a really good word for Jupiter and Taurus, this solidity, this sense of like, I have a very solid sense and foundation in who I am. And even if things aren't going the way that I want them to right now, I have faith that they will, because I feel very centered and rooted in who I am. This is going to be a very powerful sensation that you will have, and that might even be associated to an external bestowal of a gift or an opportunity or an invite on May 18th. The signs that are most affected are going to be Taurus, Cancer, Leo, Sagittarius, and Pisces. On May 19th, the Sun then forms a sextile to Neptune in the sky. All right, so on the day before, May 18th, it formed a conjunction with Jupiter, and then on the 19th, it sextiles Neptune. Now, what's interesting about this is that Jupiter and Neptune are the co-rulers of the zodiac sign of Pisces. The Sun is now in Taurus, so that means it's ahead of Pisces. So this is what we call a departing sextile. The Sun isn't approaching Neptune, the Sun is departing Neptune. So what we have with a departing sextile, that is a place of inspiration. When you are approaching a planet, you are looking forward to meeting it. Okay, let's take Wizard of Oz as an example. Okay, Dorothy and the Scarecrow and the Tin Woodsman and the Lion are following the Yellow Brick Road because they've been told that if they follow the Yellow Brick Road, they'll get to the Emerald City, and that's where they will meet the Wizard of Oz. And so this is a very good thing, and maybe the wizard will take Dorothy home and give the Scarecrow brains and Tin Man a heart and Lion courage. So they are looking forward to approaching the Emerald City. So this is when a planet is approaching another planet by, let's say, sextile, because that's what we're talking about today. A departing sextile means they've already met, okay, and now they're departing, they're leaving. And if you remember the Wizard of Oz, they get to the wizard and they think that the wizard's going to do all these wonderful things. And the wizard says, I will do all of these wonderful things once you have vanquished the Wicked Witch of the West. And so they came to the Emerald City expecting their wishes to be fulfilled, and they leave the Emerald City with a mission, with an assignment. They want those things even more so because the wizard just didn't give them home or brains or heart or courage gratis. They have to work for it, they have to earn it, and now they feel that they're on a mission and they're kind of inspired. Well, this is what's happening with the Sun forming a departing sextile to Neptune. It's leaving this section of the sky, and it's feeling very inspired. It's feeling like it's ready to go the next leg in its journey. Now, with a departing Sun Neptune sextile, with it being so inspirational, this is very much going to be connected to recognizing the potential in a situation. Or maybe a potential in an opportunity, or a potential that lies within yourself. And you have conviction now, because this is a departing sextile. You have conviction that you're not going to stop until you see that potential realized. Now, lots of people have potential. They could potentially be a great artist or a very successful businessman or a lion tamer. All right. So, but that doesn't mean that they're going to act on that potential. With this type of a departing sextile, you feel very much like you have to act on this potential, that it's not something that you can be casual about, that you're really determined to see this come to be. And so you're feeling inspired. And with this departing Sun-Neptune sextile, you'll probably realize that it's been a long time since you felt this inspired. However, friends or coworkers may not see what you see. You see it. and you're feeling very inspired and very can do, but they don't. And it's going to be immediately apparent because their support is going to be lackluster, or worse, there may be even open resistance or derision towards something that you feel very empowered by. What you have to remember in moments like these is that it is not easy being a visionary. And when you're a visionary, you often feel like you alone believe in what it is that you see before you. And you also can't help but feel, am I following a vision or am I following a mirage? Am I being led by something that is truly going to come to be? Or is it a mirage and am I just hiking further and further into the desert where I will expire under a blazing and unforgiving sun? And so part of this with friends or coworkers not seeing what you see and maybe even resisting what you see, this is the thing that really draws out that inspiration of the Neptune. You have to make something of yourself. You have to take out the wicked witch. Okay. You have to prove that you can do this. And so this is what you're going to absolutely be feeling on this May 19th departing sextile. And that if you can keep the faith and if you can remain resolved, then you will definitely see your dream materialize in the weeks ahead. And the signs that will be most affected by this will be Taurus, Leo, and Pisces. So, in the midst of this transfer of light that's taking place between May 18th and May 23rd, we have another interesting wrinkle that occurs on May 20th, and that is the sun entering the zodiac sign of Gemini, the zodiac sign of the twins. Gemini is an air sign, just like Libra and just like Aquarius. And all the air signs rule over relationships. And the three stages of relationships are described beautifully by the air signs themselves. Gemini, which is the zodiac sign of the twins, rules over our first experience of relationships in our life, our relationship to our sibling. A lot of times we've been told that the primary relationship is between a child and its mother or a child and its parent, but those aren't really relationships. Those are more power status hierarchies. Okay. The parent is in charge and the child depends upon the parent to take care of it. And if the parent doesn't do it, the child perishes. And if the parent does do it, the child will flourish. So that's not so much a relationship as it is a dependence. The dependence that a child feels on a parent, and which is justified because without a parent's nurturing and love and bonding, the child will not grow, the child will not flourish. So, what that means is that the first relationships that we experience are relationships with a sibling. Okay, a relationship with what would be understood to be a contemporary. Okay, Gemini is the first relationship with someone who's on equal footing with you, which is usually a sibling. And if you came from a home in which there weren't siblings, or maybe your sibling was much older than you, then Gemini will then describe a best friend or a next door neighbor, someone who you can identify with on your same level. Gemini is where we learn to play. Everything we learn about winning and losing, trusting and ratting on, we learn in Gemini. Okay, so Gemini rules over those early relationships that are formed and in some cases not formed and perhaps needed to be with people our own age. This is what Gemini rules over. So, sibling relationships, if you remember the Bible, for instance, don't always go off so wonderfully, okay? In fact, the first murder that takes place in the Bible is between Cain and Abel, the two brothers. And that's because God favors one over the other, and that incites jealousy. Siblings are well known to have feelings of jealousy and feelings of competition. And these sorts of things will play out in the zodiac sign of Gemini. And so with Gemini, there's always a comparing yourself to someone else, okay, who's usually your age or similar in your economic background or your culture or your society. It may be someone you look up to. It may be someone you look down on. Remember, it's about sibling relationships. And a sibling, again, is the person that you tell on to mom because they did something horrible. But a sibling may be also the very same person that you come to confide the things that you could never tell your parents or anyone else. And the sibling registers in that moment. This is serious, and we need to sit down and work out this problem together. So Gemini rules over the BFF who finishes your sentences, as well as your diabolical doppelganger who thwarts you at every turn. In fact, the whole idea of twinning is something that takes place with people born under the sign of Gemini. They will find that bestie, they will find that dark half, they will find that person who brings out the best in them, and they will find that person who brings out the worst in them. And there are many times in which it may very well be the same person. Now, the next 4 weeks that the sun is moving through the zodiac sign of Gemini will be very interesting because this will be a time when you will be forced to take back that invisible part of yourself that you projected onto someone else. For instance, you might meet someone who's smarter than you are, or you might meet someone who's prettier than you are, or more sophisticated. This person could turn out to become a role model, and that would be something positive. Or this person could turn out to be a rival, and that could be something negative. So whether this person turns into a boon, meaning that this person helps you to take back something onto yourself and center it in who you are, or whether this person becomes a bane to your existence, this person echoes all of those anxieties and insecurities that you feel about yourself. And this person seems to have a sixth sense for being able to push those buttons in you. So, whether this person that you meet in the next 4 weeks is a role model or a rival, a boon or a bane, all depends on how healthy your self image is. Now, the signs that will be most affected will be Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces. May 23rd is going to be the best day of the year for people born under Taurus, Cancer, Capricorn, and Pisces. Why? Because on May 23rd is when we have the completion of the transfer of light. On May 23rd, Venus forms a conjunction to Jupiter. It then forms a departing sextile to Neptune, and Jupiter then forms a departing sextile to Neptune as well. So you can hear that they're traveling over the same patch of sky that the sun traveled over. So when Venus conjoins Jupiter, and you have here two benefics forming a conjunction in the sky, a benefic bestows and brings good things. Venus comes to Jupiter and gives her light to Jupiter, where the sun had given its light to Jupiter. And so they are contained in Jupiter, which makes it so benevolent. And then Venus, being a faster moving planet, moves away from Jupiter on that same day and forms a departing sextile to Neptune. Jupiter also moves forward and forms a departing sextile to Neptune. So it's this idea that things are coming together in a very positive way. And then it's this idea that this positive turn of events is now going to inspire and empower you as you move forward. Okay, so this is a beautiful alignment of light. This is the passing of the baton of light that takes place on this day that brings to a close a very good period that reigned from May 18th to May 23rd. What also makes this very important is that these conjunctions and sextiles are taking place at the 29th degree. In other words, Venus and Jupiter will both be at the 29th degree of Taurus. Venus rules the zodiac sign of Taurus. This is a good thing. They will also move into a sextile to Neptune. Neptune is at the 29th degree of Pisces. Jupiter and Neptune are the co-rulers of Pisces. So this transfer of life has actually even expanded to include Neptune itself. So there is this coming together of good fortune. Really, it's kind of, you can almost think of it as a benediction or a blessing, and then inspiration and a feeling of empowerment, perhaps even replenishment and restoration that leaves this, that you leave this experience feeling even more inspired than you did before. Now, let's take a quick second to talk about the anaretic degree. The conjunctions and sextiles take place at 29 degrees Taurus and 29 degrees Pisces, respectively, and this is referred to as the anaretic degree, the last possible degree of a zodiac sign. Now, this usually signifies when things come to a close. And sometimes, if it's a malevolent planet that passes over the anaretic degree, or if there is a harmful planetary aspect that's taking place at the anaretic degree, it can have a very negative effect in a very impactful and maybe even catastrophic way. Catastrophic is probably too strong a word, but in a very difficult and painful way. But these conjunctions and sextiles involving the benefics actually speak to a different way of looking at them. What you may experience is perhaps a parting of the way, but it's a parting of the way that comes at the end of an obligation, that you served your time, that you delivered the witch's broomstick. So you've come back with the witch's broomstick. It could be the fulfillment of a long delayed promise, or it could be a quiet release from a situation that was holding you back. If we come back to the Wizard of Oz very quickly here, when they defeat the witch and bring back the broomstick, they find that the wizard isn't indeed a wizard at all, but a carnival barker who got caught up in a balloon and blown into the land of Oz by accident. But what happens here, which is really wonderful, is that you have a disillusionment scene that takes place, and that's Neptune being involved. Neptune is the illusion and disillusionment. But the way that it plays out, for instance, in The Wizard of Oz, is that Toto reveals that there's a man behind the curtain, and which is where we get that phrase, "Pay no attention to that man behind the curtain," and we see that the Wizard of Oz is a fake. But we go deeper with that. What the wizard reveals to each of the people who are looking for these things is that they carried the means to them all along, or that the adventures that they went on brought about the qualities that they were looking for. In other words, the scarecrow who thought he had no brains because of his adventures with Dorothy was the one who was clever and was able to figure out how to solve situations. So he didn't need brains. He had developed the brains in his various adventures. The Tin Man, who had grown rusted and had no heart, uh, with his camaraderie and care for his companions, the Dorothys of the Scarecrow and the Cowardly Lion, has great love and compassion for them and has discovered he's not an automaton and that he is a metal man with a heart. And the lion who was running away, at the sight of anything frightening, has actually stood up and been quite courageous and persevered through the adventure. And he realizes he has courage. And Dorothy, by having faith in all of this, she had begun the story looking for a place better than where she was, only to find that she really wanted to go back home. So that is a wonderful way to look at this transfer of light, that we are perhaps reconnected or reminded, or we recognize for the first time that the thing that we were looking for is something that we have already accrued in our experience, but we wouldn't have gained that experience if we hadn't gone looking for it in the first place. On May 25th, Jupiter, the planet of good fortune and higher purpose, enters the zodiac sign of Gemini for a year-long stay. Jupiter, as I mentioned, is the planet of good fortune and higher purpose, and those are the things it brings to every zodiac sign when it enters that sign, which is usually for a year. Jupiter entering your sign is always something that everyone looks forward to, because it's the period of time when fortune smiles on you and you can expect good things to happen. Jupiter, in an astrological chart, describes the way that we see God. Now, that doesn't mean that Jupiter is God. Jupiter is not a god. But Jupiter, as I said, is a planet connected to good fortune and higher purpose. It is a planet of providence. How we see the divine is often colored by the placement of Jupiter in our chart and the experience of Jupiter as it transits through the different and various astrological signs. So Jupiter in Capricorn, for instance, might be a very stern and judgmental god, maybe even perhaps a withholding god. So it might be this idea that, God wants me to sacrifice, or I go through very difficult times full of doubt. And by rising to the occasion of myself, I find a sense of divinity within or purpose by going through difficult travails. Jupiter in Pisces might be connected to a sacrificing god or goddess. Jupiter in Cancer might be very much associated to home and hearth and traditional cultural values. So if you think of the 12 zodiac signs as being sort of the 12 faces of God and Jupiter placed there, that's going to be your relationship to how the divine speaks to you. If you're a water sign, the divine speaks to you in a spiritual retreat where you have removed yourself from everything else. If you're a fire sign, the divine speaks to you in dramatic ups or downs. If you're an earth sign, the divine speaks to you in nature or in money. And if you're an air sign, the divine speaks to you through humanity. It speaks to you through people. And with Jupiter being in the zodiac sign of Gemini, the divine speaks to you in your everyday life. There's this feeling that God speaks to you in the everyday when Jupiter is traveling through Gemini. Gemini is ruled by Mercury, who was the messenger god of Olympus. And Mercury was a god that you could bump into at the market or maybe on the road while you were traveling from one town to the next, because Mercury was always hurrying about, carrying the latest news or information or message that Zeus wanted to impart to everyone else. So, with this Jupiter and Mercury, this idea that you could bump into God, we can sort of expand this idea to the notion that anyone you meet might be a mouthpiece of the universe during this period of time. So there's a wonderful quality to Jupiter in Gemini that anyone that you could meet, it could be a stranger or a best friend, could say something that would be very profound or inspirational or even life-changing. What we also see with this is how much our fortunes are linked to the fortunes of other people. Gemini is a very transactional sign. It's in charge of buying and selling. Again, that refers back to its ruling planet, Mercury. So the idea that if you do good, you'll get good in return, or if you do bad, you'll get bad in return. This is something that's going to become quite heightened now that Jupiter is in the zodiac sign of Gemini for a year. So there really is this idea of being your brother's keeper, or being a person who stands by your sister, or being someone who doesn't abandon a friend, not if you don't want to be abandoned in turn later on in your life. So Jupiter is also a planet that's very moral in the way that it looks at things. It believes that the universe really is made up of good and bad forces, and that you truly want the good to prevail, and the good prevails by doing good works. Now, Gemini isn't exactly the most moral sign of the zodiac. Okay, now that's not to say that Geminis are amoral or anything along those lines, but Geminis aren't exactly a moral sign because Geminis question everything. Why is that good? Is there a God if bad things happen in the world? Why is everyone supposed to obey this rule? It seems like a really silly rule. So Geminis are always questioning things. And this is why the Mercury ruled signs of Gemini and Virgo are opposite the Jupiter ruled signs of Sagittarius and Pisces. Sagittarius and Pisces put a lot in faith, in things that are either to be experienced or can only be felt invisibly in some way through maybe a mystical or an adventurous experience. And Gemini and Virgo keep things closer to home. And so they question and they play with ideas and they fiddle with things. And Gemini's, as I've often said, never met a rule that it couldn't bend. Okay, so it wants to find its way around things, and it's not going to accept a moral judgment without questioning it. And so this is an interesting quality that we have combined with Jupiter as it enters all of our horoscopes by transit in the zodiac sign of Gemini, is that we will find ourselves questioning the rule, the law, the sanctity, the morality of something. We might even find ourselves mistrusting the morality of something. We might find ourselves playing around with something that other people regard as sacred, as sacrosanct, like put down that chalice or don't fiddle around with that, beautiful holy relic. Hands off, you Gemini. But the Jupiter in Gemini also can't help but push and prod and question, because the divinity that it's looking for, it doesn't want to be parochial. It doesn't want to be like set. It wants to be something that can be discovered, something that it never really thought of before. What this can also talk about in your day-to-day life is the changing of fortunes. Gemini is a very changeable sign, and things can go good in the wind can blow in one direction and then suddenly blow in the opposite direction or stop blowing altogether. And so these are also things that will be experienced with Jupiter in Gemini. So Jupiter in Gemini isn't going to give you good things just because it's your time to have them. And this goes especially for Geminis. Jupiter in Gemini will work with you if you are playing nicely. That's probably the best way of putting it, because I'm sort of combining, a kindergarten's playground, with our early educational experiences and Gemini's connection to the next door neighbor, the kid next door, that you grew up with, or sibling. So really, are you playing well with other people? And that will be part of the Jupiter and Gemini. And if you're playing well, if you're being good, then if you're begetting good, because Jupiter works on that premise that the more good that you do, the more good will come back to you, not as a payback, but because it's come full circle, this idea. So if you play well with others, that's good. But if you don't play well with others, Jupiter can take on a very punitive side. Remember, this is the god that used to hurl thunderbolts, at people that didn't treat him with proper respect and sanctity, people who blasphemed. And so Jupiter is very capable of doing that. So I think the idea is you will experience the benefits of Jupiter in Gemini if you play well with others and in your interactions. If the person you meet on the street you treat as if you were meeting God, not like, you have to genuflect or anything like that, but it's said that everyone is made in the image of God. So if everyone is made in the image of God, then everyone is a reflection or an aspect of God. So the idea was that you would treat everyone like that, in that spirit of God. And if you do that, things will go well. And if you don't do that, things won't go well. And that's probably a really good way to work with Jupiter in the zodiac sign of Gemini from May 25th until June 10th of next year. The signs most affected will be Aries, Leo, Libra, and Aquarius. And the signs that will have a little bit of a struggle with Jupiter and Gemini will be Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces. The month of May ends with the last quarter moon in the zodiac sign of Pisces. This last quarter moon will be taking place on May 30th. Now, a last quarter moon is a moon that is waning. That means losing its light. The height of the lunar cycle is the full moon, when the moon is at its lightest, brightest, and most luminescent. When we are at the last quarter moon, the moon is heading back towards the darkness of the new moon. It's ending its journey. The astrologer Liz Green once described a moon in the last quarter, traveling from last quarter to balsamic, as sort of coming back from a vacation. When the moon begins its lunar cycle, you're really excited about going on vacation. You've packed your clothes and decided what you're going to wear. Then you're on vacation. That's under the light of the full moon. You're enjoying the different sights. You're taking selfies, and you're wearing all your different clothes and outfits and looks, and you're buying new clothes and things like this, and you're stuffing them into your suitcase. And then here, from the last quarter to the end of the lunar cycle, you're on your way home. You're over it. Your clothes haven't been washed. Maybe they smell. Maybe you're worried that everything that you packed into your suitcase make it through customs worry-free, and you just want to get home. You had a great time, and that was wonderful, but you just really want to get home and sleep in your own bed. And so this is the temperament of a moon moving from the last quarter to the balsamic phase, which is that little sliver of light, that departing sliver of light that it leaves before it goes dark and goes into its new moon phase. So that feeling of everything having been played out can give you the feeling that you don't have any more options or alternatives, and maybe you just have to sort of accept where you are psychically or emotionally regarding this last quarter moon. But ironically, it's at times like these when we actually are given our greatest opportunities. And you might ask, well, why? I mean, why when I'm feeling fatigued? Why when I'm feeling tired? Why when I tried this or that to escape a situation, or I tried this or that to come to some sort of acceptance or make some sort of peace with the situation, and all those things didn't work? Why would this be an opportune time? And the reason why is because you can't go back the way you came. All right. Now, there's a kind of finality to that, sort of like, okay, I can't go back the way I came. That's a good thing. And I would say it is a good thing because you can't retrace your steps. And when you can't retrace your steps, the only thing you can do is to make new steps. And that is where you may find yourself poised with this particular last quarter moon in the zodiac sign of Pisces. You probably have no idea of what comes next, and that's the perfect place to be. Now, it's been a long time since you've been faced with this. It's been a long time since you've looked at an empty canvas and seen an empty canvas staring you back in the face. But what I want you to do in this final quarter moon space that you're in, where you're looking at this empty canvas and have no idea what your next step is going to be, I want you to treat that canvas the way that all artists treat canvases, and that is to sketch. Close your eyes and just sketch. Close your eyes and explore and play. You might be surprised. You might be impressed by what your imagination comes up with now that it's free to do the thing that it does best, which is imagine. The signs that will be most affected are Gemini, Cancer, and Pisces. If you enjoyed what you saw, please press the like button. It helps more than you know. If you could subscribe, that would be wonderful. I've had such a wonderful time visiting with you this week, and I can't wait to get together next time on Christopher Renstrom Astrology.